going to break this down to the good and the bad. And let's start with the good news here for the Gators class is the player average score, 92.34 for the Gators. And look, I know some of you with the good news and all that. Is it a class of where we want this to be? No. A 12th ranked class is, not going to, a 12th ranked class is 4 years in a row is not going to win you a title at all. So we know recruiting got to get better, but there's still some good to take away from this class. You may see some of it as cherry picking, and probably some of it won't disagree with you, but not all is bad. Just because it's not a top 10 class, just because it's not a top 5 class, does not mean there is not good in the class. And with this for the Gators, let's start with the average score, 92.34. That ranks 5th on the 24/7 Sports Composite. Going by ranking, now Florida does only have 20 players. And so the comparison that you want to probably go to of where you wish if Florida had 20 players and could put it as comparison to somebody, Ohio State also has 20 players. And they're a 5th ranked class. So their average is 93.57. So that's probably the best comparison right now, just because of the number of commits both Florida and Ohio State have. But Ohio State's average is 93.57. That lets you know the difference and how much 1 point is worth. I mean, that's a whole point higher than Florida. Florida's at 12th in the rankings. Ohio State's 5th in the rankings, both with 20 commits. Ohio State scores 287.66, while Florida scores 272.21. But taking that average score in the top 5 there for the Gators. Alabama with the highest at 94.75. Georgia's second. They're second in the rankings. Like I said, Alabama's first in the rankings and the first average highest score. Alabama takes it away there. Georgia is second overall and second in average with 93.64. Ohio State, the 5th ranked overall class, like I said, but the 3rd highest average in 93.57. Texas with the 3rd ranked overall, but 4th in average, 92.82. And then the Gators at number 5, 12th ranked class, as I said, but 92.34 brings them as the 5th ranked average there. So there's some quality in this class. Quantity's not there, and tied together, quality and quantity's not quite there. As I said, Ohio State probably takes that cake with only 20, but it's such a high average. But there's a positive I think you can take away there. Miami is 6th in average, Notre Dame 7th average, A&M 8th in average with the 14th ranked class. So there you go. There's some good to take away. 18 4-stars in the class, 2 3-stars. So that's why you see that average being that 92.34, because there's 18 4-stars, 2 3-stars. $14 of 20 are from the state of Florida. And we know this has to be more of an emphasis, and we'll get into it on the bad side. But you see the emphasis on the state of Florida. And we know Florida's got to get better at the top of it, but this class is filled with local guys in the state. And if you're going to compete, you want to recruit the state of Florida. And if you want to recruit elite, Florida's going to have to start recruiting the elite of Florida. But nice base here, 14 of the 20 from the state of Florida. Oddly enough, with so much talent in the state, Florida's top 2 players in the class come from out of state. Rashada from California and Collins from Alabama. In-state gets started with 94th ranked Aiden Mazzell. He's the 94th ranked player overall. And we'll go even more into depth there because, as I said, missing the top, that's part of the issue with this class. All right, but also I think we could go into positions a little bit. The good. Florida got their quarterback. Florida got Jaden Rashada, top player in the class, right outside the top 50. Got to figure out this quarterback position, and the best way to figure out is start stacking some good talent. Lagway, of course, joined the class for 24, so that gives you 2 back-to-back. Of course, hopefully he hangs on in the 24 class. But you got to get it started somewhere, and Jaden Rashada is that start. So you got your quarterback. Wide receiver. Really good wide receiver class for the Gators. As I mentioned, Tyree Patterson ended up going to UCF in the end. But Florida bringing in Aiden Menzel, Eugene Wilson, and Andy Jean. Menzel, the 94th ranked player in the country. Eugene Wilson, the 112th ranked player in the country. Andy Jean, most people consider underrated as the 358th ranked player in the country. All three 4-stars. Aiden Menzel, the 16th ranked wide receiver. Eugene Wilson, the 19th ranked wide receiver. Andy Jean, the 53rd ranked wide receiver. If I had to say probably more of an instant impact out of those, I'm probably going Eugene Wilson, though. Aiden Menzel of 6'2", 180, probably got to put a little bit of weight on. Got an injury dealing as well. Hopefully he'd be ready, but he's going to be that deep burner type of receiver that you're looking for. Eugene Wilson, the creator out of that group, take a pass and make something happen after the catch. Andy Jean, or what he's so lauded for, is that his route running ability. And hey, look, good storyline there. Of course, I know if you've been keeping up recruiting a lot out there, and look, I don't know how much you guys keep up with it. Maybe you rely on just what I bring you here in Gators Breakdown. Maybe you read the articles and the different websites out there too. But Andy Jean, there was a lot of worry out there from Gator Nation about whether he'd be in this class or not. He's coming off of an FSU visit this past weekend as well. And I know, and he previous visits as well. And Miami was trying to get back into it with him after he committed to Florida, and Miami tried to get him to hold off there in July, that late July commitment right there. So you look at Andy Jean and taking visits, and hey, look, guys are going to enjoy the recruiting process. Not everybody's going to shut it down, but credit for Florida sticking with him, staying with him, and really putting together Kerry Colbert. I mean, probably should be spoken about enough. I mean, you were able to pull in Menzel, Wilson, Andy Jean, and not really a lot to sell on the field because these guys were in the class before Florida even took a snap in Billy Napier's first season. You recruited these guys based off of, hope, a vision, and that's what recruiting is supposed to be. Early in a coach's tenure. That's what you can sell. And you were able to hang on to these guys. And the offense, the passing offense didn't take off like many of us wanted it to. But then you were able to hang on to Menzel and Wilson and Andy Jean. And then defensive end, defensive edge. I could have put defensive line, but I don't think I don't like what Florida did at defensive tackle. I like Will Norman, but there's not a high number there. And I think Florida needed more. I'll get into that. So let's just concentrate on the defensive end, defensive edge. And Florida brought in some good numbers there and some high quality players. Starting at the top with Kelby Collins, the second-ranked player in the class, number 60 player in the country, sixth ranked at his positions from the state of Alabama. Cameron James, just a massive 6'6.5", 265. Kelby Collins, 6'5", 280. Most of these guys are going to be playing end, edge. TJ Searcy, 6'5", 250. Should be one of those speed rushers off the edge. Gavin Hill, 6'3", 255 from local Gainesville. And so 4 right there that Florida should be able to get plenty out of in that defensive end, edge role. Collins, James, Searcy, Hill. And that was something we know Florida's got to hit. Florida's got to get better in the trenches. And that does not only count for defensive tackle, where I thought Florida missed an opportunity. Also counts for the edge rushers, the defensive ends. So Collins, James, Searcy, Hill, guys I'm really looking forward to seeing. They're a nice depth, I think, for bringing 4 of those guys in. I think Florida will see coming up for defensive tackle. They'll be hitting the transfer portal there. And then, of course, defensive back. And yes, it's still good. I know Florida missed on some of the top targets out there. And Desmond Ricks is coming up tomorrow on Thursday. And I know there's some question out there now if he's really going to LSU, or there's some maybe worry from the LSU side of things and the national side of things if LSU is going to be the pick. Now there's some second guessing of that maybe. So we'll see what happens there. If it's not LSU, maybe Alabama, Florida. Maybe Florida gets back into the late mix here with Desmond Ricks. The report is Florida's still in communication. If I'm saying right now, as we're recording around 8 p.m. on this National Signing Day night, I say maybe LSU probably still wins out. But also with the way Alabama finished, I'm not counting them out. So right now, I don't see Ricks on Thursday picking Florida. And then Cormani McClain, we know the storyline there. And I talked about that earlier. So, and Rick's reclassified. So that was one that could have come to you late. And McClain, that one does hurt. Right down the road in Lakeland. It was one of the early targets we said, Florida's just got to get. But that does not mean that this defensive back class is still not really good. It is. This is a really good defensive class. Really good defensive class. Defensive back class. Dijon Johnson, top 100 player. I think he's going to play cornerback for the Gators. But, of course, 24/7's got it listed as a safety. So you probably, you got corner, you got nickel, you got safety all in the mix right there. Jakeem Jackson, I think, may end up being one of the better players in the class. I'm big time high on Jakeem Jackson. And I think if you listen to Billy Napier's press conference, you could tell he was too. That's one guy. I mean, he could have played wide receiver for the Gators. That's how athletic he is. I cannot wait to see this kid get an interception and see what happens after the catch, because I think Jakeem Jackson's got that ability. He's the 123rd ranked player in the country. Jordan Castell at safety there. We know how much help Florida needs at safety. He's the top 200, like I said, top 200-ish player, 203. Sharif Denson from right here in Jacksonville. So, of course, I'm going to hit that one a little bit closer to heart. Right there at Bartram Trail, I think, probably plays that nickel role when it's all said and done. I think you can move him around if need be. But I think that's where we probably see him first. I like it because, man, he's a very tough player, and I've seen a lot more video of him than I have most of these guys, because he's here in Jacksonville. Scrappy player, does not mind getting dirty as a defensive back, likes to tackle, he likes to contact. Somebody I am looking for like that in that nickel position. Bryce Thornton, another safety there from the state of Georgia, 387th ranked player. So Thornton paired with Castell, I think, there's more your safety types in this class. Johnson, a little bit of versatility, but I do see him more as an outside corner at the college level to go along with Jakeem Jackson, Sharif Denson, probably your nickel. So you got almost your full defensive back class. I mean, you could fill your whole defensive back with just this class. Your defensive backfield could be Dijon and Jakeem on the outside, Castell and Thornton as safeties, and Sharif Denson as your nickel if you have to go to a 5-man defensive backfield. So this is and I know Corey Raymond and there's been the question of, well, why can't he get the elites at Florida? Look, don't get me wrong. That is a disappointment. I'll agree. I'm not going to gloss over that. It is, there were plenty of targets there for Florida, dating back to the springtime and the summertime, and some weird things happened to go along the way. We'll see if there's one last hurrah, one last surprise, one last push there for Ricks on Thursday. I think we can move on from that, but just, I guess keep an eye on it. Weird things happen in recruiting. I'm not trying to get your hopes up. Don't get me wrong. As I said, my prediction would not be that. But I do like what Florida did here. And I won't be surprised. I don't really make projections like this, but just looking at it, Jakeem Jackson, I think the kid's going to be special. If I had to sit here and pick one player on the defensive side. I'm taking the whole defensive side into consideration here. He might be the guy I key in on. He just might be the one that I key in on. So there you go. There's good. I'm taking from this class. Really good average. Filled with 4 stars. Not a lot of 3 stars. State of Florida hit really hard. And I think Florida did a really good job at quarterback, wide receiver, defensive end / edge, and defensive back.
Want more Gators Breakdown? Join Gators Breakdown Plus. Starting at $3 a month. Get access to unique episodes, plus a blog, chat room, giveaways, shoutouts, and more. Gators Breakdown Plus is furthering the interaction with fans and listeners like you. Head to gatorsbreakdown.supportingcast.fm to join Gators Breakdown Plus today.